Welcome to another session of Dr. Spotfire. This is Vishakha Mujju, and I have my crew with me, Divya Jyoti Rajdev and Minerva. Learning is not driven by answers but by questions, and we highly encourage you attending our sessions and kind of checking them. So this is the crew, Vishakha Mujju. Then I have Divya Jyoti Rajdev with me today. We have Minerva, and we have our campaign architect Alexis with us. So we're all based out of Palo Alto. And we will be starting our featured session with Spotfire, with introduction to Spotfire data catalog. And Minerva would be kind of presenting the featured session. Alexis, can you please give the presenter right to Minerva?
All right. Can you hear me, guys?
Yes. Can you have a little bit louder, please?
Okay, sure. Hello, everybody. And, thank you. Well, welcome to Spotfire. Today, let me go ahead and share my screen. I will be going through a brief walkthrough of the data catalog, Spotfire Smart Data Catalog. That is a popular offering for AI-driven data discovery and cognitive search. It is not only for data discovery and search, but also possibly for a bunch of advanced features. But before deep diving into those kind of features, I would like to cover the basics. Guys, just a health check. I was hearing a beep in the background and there's nothing now. You guys can still hear me, right?
Yes. Yeah, that was the user dial-in. Go ahead.
Okay, all right. So as I said that this webinar series is an ongoing series by TIBCO Spotfire, and I'll be covering insights and talking a little more about what was covered in the past. And feel free to ask questions from the perspective of this particular offering. So when does the Smart Data Catalog come in? It comes into picture when we are dealing with data lakes. Now, data lakes is another buzzword out there, which possibly just means that many disparate sources of data coming in varied formats, which can be structured or unstructured, and maybe a set of data sources make absolutely no sense to another conflicting data source. For example, take into account sensor data and try to compare that to a social media feed. So when we have disparate sources of data and business analysts are still supposed to make sense of all of that, that's when we, go to BI tools or tools that can help out and make our task of gaining knowledge from these sources easier. So while Spotfire has immense capability to take data from disparate sources, put in relational formatting, put in several ways of trying to collaborate different sources of data, there still are certain scenarios wherein we might want extended capability here. And that's where our current offering, which is in collaboration with one of our partners, becomes a very handy and powerful tool to deal with situations that will be discussed a little further on. So how exactly would Spotfire fit in if we have a data lake that consists of different kinds of data? We would possibly have Spotfire interface with the Spotfire data catalog. The Spotfire data catalog would try to make sense of all of this incoming data by using AI as well as intuitive workflows to aid the user. It is that kind of a scenario wherein if I have 20 files downloaded and I want to not work with them and I really want a quick fix solution to understand the exact relationship between different files, that the data catalog can be very handy. Of course, a detailed analysis of the file will happen, and the data catalog helps in that process as well. So after interfacing with Spotfire, that's a world that we're very familiar with, we have business analysts, data scientists, or data citizens interact with Spotfire in the same way as that we were used to. That's where the seamless connectivity of this product offering really aids Spotfire's functionality. So our partners here are Attivio, the current offering, that is the Spotfire data catalog, is powered by Attivio, and Attivio, just as a brief history, has been ranked pretty high in the Forrester quadrant for cognitive search and knowledge discovery solutions. That's because it has some innate capabilities that are extremely powerful when dealing with data sources that are varied in this split. So before getting into a walkthrough, let's look at the big picture. How would data come in? We would have a variety of data streams or sensor data or different kinds of data coming in into the data lake that would be acted upon by the Spotfire data catalog, and it would perform one of these three things. It would do a cognitive search, an AI-driven data mashup, or governance. Now, the connectivity part will be shown, but under cognitive search, we have something called a spider, which is able to catalog and index data. A bit more on that in future slides. We can easily find data and relationships amongst them, and finally, we can find insights much more quickly. So that is the part that we will be dealing with. The one thing that is mentioned in the business control aspect of dealing with Spotfire data catalog is that before, you had to possibly rely on many parties in order to process incoming data that was different from, say, a relational structured data stream. And now that process becomes immensely quicker when you have a tool at your hand that can just bring in different streams and make sense out of it. So let's go through a brief walkthrough. This is through screenshots, and I will cover a part of this live as well. So when you start out with the data catalog, this is the screen that you get. The first option here is to connect and profile data. This is the part that we will be getting into in deeper details today. And once I do that, I have the option to create spiders. So as the audience might be very well aware of it, but just to recapture, I'm going to take you through a screen that is Attivio screen to outline how well we have the process of indexing in this technology. So what happens here is, say I want to understand in this particular PDF file or data file, what are the key phrases that are available? So this is a general article that is a general news article on the internet, and once I do find, if say I want to find out about elements that are related to the source type news here. One second, let me go ahead and refresh this. Okay, I will sign in a little later. Let's go back and I will go to the bot part again. But the idea was that indexing is innately easy when we are following the spider method of going through different sources of data, or crawling the web, or crawling PDF documents, or even crawling relational, unstructured, or big data sources in a manner wherein we are indexing individual fields and trying to correlate them with meaningful data sources other than that particular data table in question. So right now, when we create a spider based on a relational construct, we are taken through a dialog that asks us to connect through any JDBC driver. And as you see, we have a bunch of out-of-the-box connectivity to drivers like Hive, Oracle, so on and so forth. After this is configured, we are told to configure whether we want to have data ingested completely. This would be an all-inclusive ingestion where we would take in metadata or data related to fields that we possibly don't want, or we could have a partial ingestion wherein we could choose specific data tables or specific dimensions that we really want to be included in our connection here. Finally, we can filter a certain fields. So we can specify a regular expression to filter tables or files or CSV files such that our results are much more meaningful. So after we do that, we get a very beautiful view which will be shown a little later that is intuitive. It already has natural joins that it gathers from metadata as well as a cognitive search from the database, and this join is available now as a data mart. Recall the big picture earlier in the slides. Let me just go back to that. Wherein we have a data mart that interfaces with the Spotfire interface. Now, the beauty of this is available as a JDBC connection. So all of our mashup, all of our data mashups are now visible as one seamless connection to the Spotfire interface. This, in fact, and that is the JDBC option. There is another option wherein we can export to SBDF files, which many Spotfire users are very used to. So it's as easy as export to SBDF, and we open the SBDF in Spotfire, and instead of establishing several data relationships manually, we now have one connectivity to maybe a repeatedly updating source of multiple data streams. So coming back to the part wherein I had this little piece wherein I was trying to emphasize CSV use case for Spotfire. So the example here was that I gathered several sources of data from Catalogue that had a common field, and I tried to bring it into Attivio. It was the most simple task that could be done. And what I came to know was that I got a beautiful diagram. Next, I tried to do this visually through a complex source, and this was the data relationships table that I got based on my settings for bots in the previous screenshot. So basically what we see here is that we have a relationship that is established through various fields. For example, here the item ID was the matching field that went into this particular data source, and this cohesively went into this particular data source. So item ID was a recurring field here, and it got translated upwards. Say we do not like a certain relationship or a certain meaning that our current implementation of the data catalog has done for us, it is very easy to update the model through this little cog here. So what does the update model actually do? It helps you add a particular data source that you think is broken or is missing. And addition also is tried to, here we are trying to make it friendly and not too intimidating when you're dealing with such disparate sources, where there are suggestions for links that are grayed out saying this could be a possible alternative. These suggestions could be ignored, but this is a smart way of doing say manual intervention here. So before we move to another section, this was my piece on the data catalog, and I do have a demo for which I'll have to get my credential part a little right, so I can possibly do it a little later. But this was the piece on the demo. Let me just minimize this. So coming back to our Dr. Spotfire question and answer kind of thing, I do have questions that I got this week for simple use cases which I wanted to highlight in this session. So the first question that I got was a very interesting one, and I call it interesting because it made me think a lot. So the query that the customer had was, they were using an on-demand data table that was powered with a MySQL connection. Now, when you're using a MySQL connection or a connection that is through a database, there are some supported functions and there are some functions that are not supported to a Spotfire implementation that, say, is in memory. So here was the list of functions that were supported. The customer had a very interesting question wherein they wanted to have a trellis graph wherein the datetime field, which right now is shown on top, needed to be in the descending order rather than the ascending order. Out of the box, so the premise of this question also is the fact that in Spotfire we have, for dates in particular, we have a natural sorting order. So you cannot have a checkbox for ascending or descending. You can store that in a table in a certain way, but it's not stored in the ascending or descending form in the data table. And this is an ongoing enhancement request, which, if you like, could update in the ideas portal. So knowing these factors, there were very easy fixes for this particular date format. So one of the answers that are mentioned in the community as well included the suggestion to go with ranking, wherein you could just rank your dates based on the rank function, and you could include a descending ranking, and then you could put this on top of your trellis such that you had a descending order of date time. What made this possible was, let me show my data panel. So what made this possible was a rank date column, which basically just used the dense rank function in descending order. But this was not the best case scenario for the customer, because by default, MySQL connections do not have the ranking function. So the functions that are present are datetime, conversion, math function, so on and so forth. But ranking isn't seen here. So the next approach that I thought was to use a few datetime functions. Datetime functions also have a limitation based on the kind of sub-functions that are available in this broad category. So I used the epoch function to create a calculated column, go the same way, show an absurdly weird number right on top, but still it achieves the functionality. Actually, let me go ahead and disable that. And so right now you see, if we go to the calculated column properties and see, the column properties and see the calculated column right here. The epoch function used time since a particular time format, parsed my date. My time was actually in the string format, so I converted it to date time format. Tried to find the time elapsed since a particular time that the epoch function actually shows up. Let me just bring it up, otherwise it's not very intuitive. So once I use this, it's called 2 epoch milliseconds. So time that has passed since 1970, it calculates that duration. And since I wanted it in descending order, I just multiplied it with the -1. And this worked well too. But unfortunately, epoch function is not supported in the MySQL connection either. So while this is a very viable alternative, and this proves to show the versatility of what Spotfire can achieve through functions, it was not possibly the best option. The next thing that I realized was from one of the Dr. Spotfire sessions held by Vishakha, wherein we could possibly go inside and use the very well appreciated feature of drill down, wherein we actually have, say, a list that is tied to a document property show a particular date in a certain format. While it will not help the descending part, it might just help the customer narrow down the trellis date functionality a little better. The other option could be maybe a date picker that could select a sliding range of dates, such that instead of going through a descending order, you could select a time frame and see 2 dates side by side, and then just rely on manual intervention. So just to, I'm still actively figuring out a few more solutions that could go here, but these were a few options that could empower the user to think out of the, beyond the traditional outlook of just using what was available out of the box. This was question number 1. Question 2 that we had was very simple, and it took, the kind of question here was to understand data limiting that is available inside visualizations. If you know the answer, this question would take 2 seconds. But if you did, then you were trying to go through our community and read through each article, it might take you 5 or 10 minutes. So just to reinforce your belief that a relatively new Spotfire user can navigate through the resources and get to a pretty decent answer in like less than 15 minutes of your time. So this data has been anonymized, and what we have here, so let's, by going through the question, what we have here is a bar chart that drills down into a particular statistical range right here. We are dealing with quartiles, we are seeing outliers in a certain visualization, and what the customer wanted was the lack of outliers. He only wanted his people to see this particular visualization without the trailing outliers. So this was done in this graph. Here you see, if I select something, it is still the same underlying data, but the outliers have decreased, and you see a bigger, see right here, the kind of outliers you were seeing in the previous visualization is significantly lesser here. So again, it is data limitation. Sometimes it helps thinking out loud. How did we achieve this? It was through limiting data, but inside this particular visualization. So all that we had to do was have a U95 function limit this visualization by the U95 function, saying that unit price, which is the value, okay, we just remember this part, that unit price should be less than U95 of unit price, and trying to piece it back together in this particular visualization. We are, so price per unit corresponds to unit price processed in a certain way, right here. So this unit price is the one being delimited. All right, so that was it from me. These were the 2 questions that were simple, but the kind of questions that came in this time. Over to you, Vishaka.
Yeah, I just want to point out, you can see this box plot here, which Minerva was just showing you, that already has categorical, that already has the categorical labels show up at the bottom in the statistical table. So one of the questions on chat panel was about to show these, and in this case, it's a hierarchy. It's within each year, each quarter. That's why you see labels as each year, each quarter. My colleague DJ here is answering all the questions and providing additional resources and link on chat panel. So now you can pass the ball to me.
Okay, sure.
While you're still on the screen, when you see the box plot, the question was, how do you make the labels appear in their entirety? So by default, the formatting should take care of it. In case your labels are still coming as truncated, you can always put in a zoom slider on the x-axis. So if you go to the properties of the box plot, and inside the properties x-axis, you've got the zoom slider. And then that basically allows you to narrow down your current viewing to the level of detail that you want, such that your labels or your statistics tables entries show up appropriately. You can further go in and add formatting to all of these. As far as vertical labels are concerned, those are available in our other table visualizations, such as cross tables. Definitely give that a look. But if you do want it inside box plot also, please submit it as an idea on the ideas portal. I'm just sending the link on the chat.
Thank you, DJ. So Minerva, can you pass the ball?
Yeah, I think.
Okay, let me go ahead and share my screen. So first of all, I would like to share DXP with you, which is about something interesting, which one of the person from Spotfire support kind of shared with me, and it's about the solar eclipse, which is going to be the first total solar eclipse, which is going to be experienced in North America in 38 years. And in this case, what she has done is she has tried to show the path of totality, the umbra at the 10-minute intervals, the penumbra coverage using Spotfire map chart. And this data is available from the NASA website, and here is the kind of a link which we will be kind of posting as an article also as a follow-up for this Dr. Spotfire session, where we will provide you all the links in this DXP file. So basically it's the total solar eclipse, which is going to happen on Monday, 21st August. This will be the first total solar eclipse, and there are things like umbra, which means that this is where there will be the total darkness or the total shadow, and then there is the partial one, which is penumbra, and you can see in this case what we are doing is it's just a simple map chart visualization which shows path of the moon's umbral shadow, the path of totality with the central line. So if your house falls on that particular path, it will be complete darkness. And you can see this particular map chart shows how which will be the path of totality, where it will be like complete darkness. Then we have another visualization in this case where we are exactly showing the 10-minute interval. So the fully shaded inner region of a shadow, the dark central part of a sunspot. So at 10 it will be here, at 10:10, then 10:20, 10:30, and this is how it would be kind of. Again, this data is from the NASA, and that's what has been used and visualized in a Spotfire map chart. Now to just show you a little bit about this map chart properties, it's simply where I have multiple layers. So I am having the base layer map chart, which is my map layer. Then I am just adding these locations as a reference, which is the support to, and then the umbra data at a different time intervals, where is the actual position. That is what is shown as a feature layer. So that is something you are able to kind of see at what time, based on your location, you can see where you would see the total umbra. Then there is penumbra also, which would be a little wider area. Again, it's a map chart where you can kind of see this is the location where this penumbra would be there. And you can see the 90. Then you have a drop-down menu where I can see 75. I can see 50. So wider area, then I would be able to see 25. So I have kind of this as more area, and I will be able to see like, okay, this would be the more area. So again, you have like, you can use properties, and this is just a simple visualization which can graphically help you understand the path of the solar eclipse and what is going to happen where. Just a quick about the author. She's Christine Smith. Most of you might have interacted with you. She is part of Spotfire technical support and has been with us for more than 9 years. And she kind of found this interesting because this is something which is going to happen soon. And that's why we wanted to share this with you. Next, we kind of received a question on email, which was kind of a detailed question where there was a problem with AWS S3 bucket, and the user wanted to get those into Spotfire. I tried to get access for those using AWS S3 package in R, and we had the code, and there were like the error messages as well. And this was something which was kind of sent us through email with all the details. Now, before going on to the solution, based on this question, what we have is we have something which is already on the community exchange. On our community exchange, you can find we have a template which is to kind of find out, to display the environmental variables, because when you read this kind of detailed question, you would see that there are packages missing and we don't know whether it's the right TER version where the packages have been installed, or what is the path. So this is a common kind of question which we kind of see coming up a lot of times. So let me show you the community exchange. So in that community exchange, you can see there is on community.tipco.com, we have this link as exchange, and within exchange, if you look at various kind of templates which we publish, one of the templates is the environmental variable display of TIBCO Enterprise Runtime for our data in TIBCO Spotfire. So what I did was I have downloaded this template already, and it's just a zip file, and this is the template, and I just opened it without making any changes. So in this template, you can see it will retrieve and display information about your current system. So right now you can see the folder for our packages. It's something who tested the template. This is by default what you will see. The TER version was 4.3. This is the time which was tested, and our home was this. Again, the last time the GX2 was saved, the person who tested it, it is information about his environmental variables. So what all I need to do is, and this is his installed packages. So the moment I will click this button, it will provide information about my TER environment. So instead of his TER environment, I would be able to kind of see my TER environment details, and you can see it is running the background task. And now everything changed. My R home is different. So earlier it was showing M. Alprin, which is my colleague Mike Alprin, but now it shows a different path. So this is my R home, and I don't have 4.3. I have 4.2 TER version. So that is what is being used. And these are my folder paths for R packages. This is where my R packages are. And you can see that my packages are different than I have ISO week package, which was not earlier there, and my packages are different. And you can even, the moment you kind of try installing any new package and you refresh this, you will see those packages will show up here. Now, the first thing, you know about your environment, you know which packages are there, you know which TER version you are using, you know your R home, but then the next thing comes up is, okay, is that package compatible? So you can try out this template, you can download it, and it's just simply you download, open it, and you click on this button and you see information about your TER environmental variables. And now the next piece comes on is, okay, now I have these environmental variable, this information, now I want to know about the package compatibility. So we have this, DG can provide you the link for this. What is new in Enterprise Runtime for R? So each version of TER, whenever it is released with detailed documentation about package compatibility. So this is like 4.3 was released in Feb 2007, 4.2 was August 2016, and you click on any of those links. So what's new in 4.3, and then once you click on the documentation, so I clicked on the TER documentation site, and this is where I see the TER documentation site for 4.3. Within that, I have a release note. So once I click on the release note, I just opened these links just to make things faster. So when you open up the release notes, you can see there is a section called as package compatibility. It provides few details about which packages have been tested, which packages are compatible. That does not mean, it's possible there are some packages which have not been tested, yet they work. So these are the packages which have been tested and they are able to work with TER, but there could be other packages which may not be in this list, but they may still work. So if there is something where something like that comes up and you want to know more about it, you can always send a request on, open up a ticket on support.tipco.com. So we have our site support.tipco.com where you can always kind of open up these kind of requests where you want to know additional details, or if there is some kind of issue with the package compatibility. And support is definitely very responsive with all these issues. So we also have things like closed issues, known issues, and things would be different from each version to version. So that's why I took this step that you know about your TAR version, then you can see what is the package compatibility, and if there is something which is kind of additional requirement, then you can kind of always open up a ticket on support.tipco.com. So this was one of the questions which we kind of received. Then what I have is, I have few more questions which I would be kind of sharing. So one of the questions is about, yes.
Vishaka, before you move on, so on the previous question, there were 3 layers of problems that we were able to solve. First was the user hadn't installed the package on the right engine that was actually executing it. The second was a potential version incompatibility issue. New TAR versions are compatible with newer packages. The older ones, of course, are compatible with older ones, and very rarely, sometimes compatibility breaks. The third thing that we wanted to address was, in the follow-up code, we're working on the authentication part, which is the last key piece, which is where support comes in, that a support ticket has been opened for this particular authentication issue. So that was just basically within one question, we were able to address 3 problems faced by the user across the board. So definitely all of your questions are of great value to us. Please post them on community with the hashtag Dr. Spotfire, or if you have any sensitive tokens or data or keys or something like that, email it to us at drspotfire@tipco.com. Go ahead, Vishaka.
Yeah, so another thing I wanted to mention here is, whenever you are able to download this community exchange package from a community, do provide feedback. That definitely helps us enhance, and if you like it, a positive feedback will be definitely appreciated, and we can definitely like add more things to it. So there are a lot of kind of templates which we published based on your feedback. So your feedback is definitely helpful to get this thing moving. Now, next I have few questions, which one of the questions which was posted was a Mekko chart in Spotfire. So before this, to be honest with you, I had never heard about what is a Mekko chart. So the authors mentioned that it is a standard visualization. We have a tree chart with scales, rectangles by size only. And then there is kind of an example here where the user is provided a PNG file. And when I look at this PNG file, I don't see a tree map. What I see is a simple stacked bar chart, where I have different categories on x-axis, and I have a stacked bar chart with a kind of percentage scale, and I see color by some subcategory. So I don't have this data, but what I try to do is, so let me go back to the visualization. Let me start. So I got a feedback that I should start from the scratch where there is nothing. So let me start creating a bar chart. So it's a simple bar chart with Boston, Los Angeles, New York, Seattle. Let's say these are the 4 categories. And I can color it by any other subcategory variable. And in this case, I'm using gender. So you can see I have color by. There the subcategories are more, but if we add something else, which is more subcategories, like let's say number of departments shopped. So I have like 6 categories. So I could pick any of those as subcategories. So I have that color by issue resolved. So I have 2 colors. Then there is something as bar width. I can go to appearance and I can change the bar width, and they become together or they become separated. So I can have no white spaces in between 2 bars. So I can change that as well. Then I mentioned that we have 100% stacked bars. So what I can do is I can make it 100% stacked bars. So now instead of actual absolute values, I see percentages. Then the point is of labels. So you want to show up these labels. So you can always add these labels. And instead of values, you can directly add percentages. So I can say I don't want complete bar, I want just percentages. I can see 62.2% for the females, 37.8% for males in Boston. And if there's more subcategories, I would see. So again, if I go back to this image, I have these percentages. And the only thing which I see different is at the top, it's representing some total value of these percentages. And again, for that kind of thing, I need kind of numbers, because the way I see this is 0 to 100%, and out of this 63% should be here, and the actual value should be here, or how it is kind of representing. For that, I need actual data to kind of come up with this. But if, as far as I understand, if we are looking at 100% as total category and subcategory percentage, then a stacked bar chart with these labels as percentage kind of clearly kind of solves this issue. Then the next question, which I would just stop if there are any questions.
On a related note, this would also be the exact approach that we adopt if you want to create a mosaic chart in Spotfire using the same sort of stacked bar chart with bar spaces option. So go ahead.
So then there is another question, which was I kind of tried to respond with additional request for data. I have a bar chart made in Spotfire. I want to add bars with performance. Please see attached doc for what I want to calculate column with number of persons doing observations in a month, number of people doing plus number not doing. So in this question, you can see there is no clarity about what the user is trying to ask. And even if I look at the doc1.docs, it's just an image. Again, that image is not clear enough to understand what here is. But still, I kind of added this question so that I can kind of give a brief overview of how to do a calculation, how to add, kind of create percentages. So if I have a new kind of page, and I want to create a bar chart. So I have a bar chart, and I want to have Boston as a percentage of all 4 locations. I don't want to see actual numbers. I have these calculations already inbuilt. Say, for example, I'm looking at total amount of purchases. So let me first pick total amount of purchases. This is some total amount of purchases. I have a lot of calculations already there as part of out of box. For example, I want to have cumulative sum. I have that calculation already here. I want to create difference. I want to create difference here over here. I want to create year-to-date total. Again, I need a date column on x-axis. I want to calculate change relative to start, change relative to fixed point. All these calculations are already like percent of total. I want to have that as a calculation, so I know out of total it is 0.26 or 26% belongs to Boston, and so on. We have Los Angeles, we have New York, we have Seattle. Now these are the out-of-box calculations which are already there, which were then. And again, just one thing to note here is, if it is not a numeric column, it's some column. Unique count. It depends on the data type. If you have a non-numeric data type, your aggregate.
Vishakha, your voice is breaking up. So could you repeat? Go ahead, speak something so we know. Yeah, it's better, it's better. Could you just repeat maybe the last 1 minute? Not one, maybe 30 seconds.
She's dialing back in to get a better connection.
Okay.
So we have a question on chat, which is about getting warnings whenever you're working in tear or a function gets executed. Now, there are 2 types of warnings that get generated. One is actually the warning gets generated on the title tab of your visualization itself, which means that when your data got refreshed, something changed that the visualization is not able to understand. But the second type of warning that comes in is from your actual data function execution. So in that case, what you can do is on chat, I have sent the link of suppressing warning through tear. So that basically shows you how within your code you can embed a line that suppresses warnings. If you don't want to suppress a warning, similar to exception handling, you know, where you catch an exception or you catch an error and you save it, you can catch the warning itself and save it as a string message that you can display in a text area. We would love to get questions like this before the actual session so that we're able to do a little bit of pre-work in order to show you these things. But just to give you a general idea, you can either suppress the warning or you can extract the warning and save it in a document property and show the document property in a text area as a label. Or if you actually want to see details of it, then the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, you will get a yellow exclamation mark. If you click on it, that gives you details. Moreover, in the chat window, I will shortly send out a link for what's new in Spotfire 7.10. We are very excited to unveil to you the Spotfire debugger functionality, which lets you debug the cause of a particular error message within Spotfire and look at it in more detail. So that's our progress on error handling. I hope that answers this question, but if you do have similar questions, feel free to ask them on chat or Q&A during the session. But also, it's always great for us to have these a little bit beforehand so we can work on it and actually show you the answers rather than just walk through them.
Yeah, I'm back. I just got disconnected.
Go ahead, Vishaka.
Yeah, so can you make me the presenter, Minerva?
Yes, I'll do it right now. You're the presenter.
Yeah, thank you. So this was, once again, this was about the calculations, how you can calculate percentages. Then these are the out-of-box functions. We can always insert calculated columns. And within calculated columns, for percentage calculation, there is a set of functions called as over functions. And we have like a couple of Spotfire Dr. Spotfire sessions where we had covered these over functions already. These would be another set of functions which you can use in order to calculate percentage calculations. Again, depending on your data, what kind of calculation you want, how your data is, we will be able to provide more details, and we will be able to kind of show how to create that calculation. So this was kind of another set of questions which we had. Then there was a question from a new user where you wanted to know how to add server address. So I am a new user, I don't know how to add a server address and how can I find it. Now again, it depends on what kind of, like there's a client or is a web client or is it a desktop. But again, if you have kind of a Spotfire installed and I will kind of try to log in using a completely blank Spotfire access. So if I'm double clicking here and I want to open up a Spotfire window, there is something called as manage servers. So this is where you kind of mention about your server address. So you can see I have multiple servers here. I have cloud.tipco.com. I have another kind of server address. What you can do is whenever you want to add server address, you will add it here. So your server address would go here as, let's say, www.tipco.com. I'm just kind of trying to show you, and I'm trying to add it. Now, if it is a valid server, it cannot connect because it's not a valid. If it is a valid server address and it is running, then only you will be able to kind of connect to that. So, and you can see anytime I can see I have the server address, I have the authentication, I have the version. If I go here, I see again there's an authentication. There is something which is a pre-selected area. So whether I am connecting to a particular area, which is production or which is test or which is some other area, I will be able to select that area as well. And this is where I add my servers. So I could have multiple servers, I could edit. So I have this edit, I can clear the pre-selected deployment area, I can change that deployment area, I can click on help and it will kind of provide me to reach the add server dialog, how I can reach the edit server dialog, how I can add, what do you mean by a pre-selected deployment area, what is TIBCO Spotfire server address. You can see those details would kind of show up. So this is another question we had was how to add server address. Again, it's from a completely new user. Then there is another question is about stacked bar charts and a line. So if I click on this, so this would be the last question we will be taking for today. Unless there are something from the chat panel, we will kind of take those. I would like to create a stacked bar chart colored by date and display a line on the same graph. The linked picture will explain more precisely. I read that it was not natively possible, but I'm receptive to every possible idea. Now, comes from a question where there is something which has been used as kind of combination chart. So there is bar chart. And there is another visualization which is combination chart. Now, depending on which visualization you use, there are things which are possible in one and there are things which are not possible in another. Let me explain what I mean by that. See, right now, both of them look same. One is combination chart, which is the top one, and the bottom one is a bar chart. In a bar chart, I can color by gender and I can kind of get a stacked bar chart. So what I'm seeing here is a stacked bar chart. So I can color by gender and I'm able to see a stacked bar chart. Now, when you go to combination chart, you can add another line, which may be something else, which may be furniture. And I can say one of them is a bar, another one is a line. And I can go here and I can say a y-axis, I can do multiple scales. So I have bars, I have multiple scales. And the moment I'm using multiple scales, like I'm having separate scales for each, I cannot use stacked bar charts. I could add another bar, like I could say, give me garden as well. So the garden would be in a different color, but I cannot have them stacked on each other. So they will be side-by-side bars with different scales for each bar, and then I would have a line on top of them. This is what was possible within a combination chart. So combination chart, because the design is you're using multiple scales, you're using separate scales for each, and you have two bars, so definitely you would represent them as side by side. You cannot have them as stacked. And on top of that, you have a line chart. Now, this is combination chart, but then if you want to have stacked bar charts, you go to bar chart. And within bar chart, you can still add line. So you can go to lines and curves. And here I can add a line. I can add line from a curve from the same data table. I can say use another data table and give me this data table and add a line. So it is possible for me, or line from column values, where I can say x is a store number. Now, when your x-axis is categorical, it is not possible to have a line on top of it because you are using things at different scales. So you need some way for Spotfire to know, oh, this one, I need this value here. It's like in the same chart you are merging. So instead of store location, if I use store number here, so if you see, if I use store number here, and I do that for dates as well. So if I have store number here, I can see multiple like stacked bar charts. I can change the bar width and I can make them appear thick as well. But right now what I want to focus on is adding that line. So if I go to lines and curves and I say add line from column value, I can say for each store number, don't give me total customers, give me something else. So this is from pivot, this is from data table, and okay, I have test data, I have store number, and I can pick something else, like give me garden. So I want that garden to be kind of displayed for each store value as a line. I can say okay. Now in this case again, since this is like a lot of values here, you can see the line does not kind of appear correctly. So what we may need to do is we may need to kind of not have multiple lines. We may need to add a simple line. In this case, maybe this vertical line or line from column values, line from data table to kind of have that appear. So the reason I'm saying it won't be that simple is because I need that date value to be kind of numeric, and then I need to superimpose another thing, a line on that. So based on how your data is, there is a kind of solution to show that. But if you don't need stacked bar charts, having combination chart create a line and bars together would be the most simple and easy solution. Whereas in this case, what I will do is I will pick up this test data, I will create an expression, and I would say, oh, based on this expression, I want kind of electronics or furniture to show up, or some value to show up here as a line, and it would be kind of a custom curve. So based on the values, if that falls within the scale, I would be able to see that. In this case, that may not fall within the scale. That's why I'm not seeing it, because it's unique. So you can see I have that multiple lines coming for each line coming from each value. So usually what we do is, the way we want to have an aggregation, we create a pivot table. So I'm showing you like all the issues which you could see when you kind of try to create a line, because in this case, each value is giving me line, each electronics value is giving me line. So instead of that, what I want is I want that line, but a single line, or like for 0 each point, and then it shows up. So what we do is we insert a transformation where we create a pivot. So we pivot it, and then we create for each date a simple table, and then we project that line on top of bar chart. So first of all, you will have your stacked bar chart, and then you will have a line from same table but using a transformation pivot, and then you will be able to represent that line with stacked bar charts. If you are not that much with the stacked bar charts, then the combination chart can kind of easily provide what you require. So that would be all on our side. In case I receive data for this question, I would be able to include this a proper solution in the next Spotfire session. Again, depending on your data and what you want to represent, we can show you how to kind of show that line using a bar chart itself. So do we have any questions on chat? We have 2 minutes.
No, we're able to cover them for today, and we're waiting for follow-up. Thank you, everyone, for attending today's session. Definitely check out the YouTube for written summaries of all the questions that we've answered along with the videos.